Arkansas basketball has a handful of questions after a pair of exhibition games, but fortunately for the Razorbacks, I think one man is the answer to most of them.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, Pod at the Palace Edition. Curtis Wilkerson here with you this afternoon to talk a little bit of Razorback hoops. With exhibition season is wrapped up, the regular season starts on Wednesday. Good times, exciting times, and it would have been nice to win both of those games. But I think the exhibition season, it's been really good for the Hogs, right? Arkansas, I think, showed folks what it's capable of with that great performance against Kansas. And then they kind of got that needed reminder, I think, to stay humble and hungry against TCU in that 1-point loss down there in Fort Worth. So, like late game experience, to me, it's just so valuable, even when it doesn't go well in these exhibition games, because you would rather get that now than 2 days from now when it counts, right? And so Arkansas's already had that experience, a lot to learn from it, probably some uncomfortable film sessions, but that's okay. I would rather Arkansas have that than a couple blowout victories where you don't really learn that much about your team, So Arkansas going out and playing two Big 12 teams in exhibition play is so much more valuable than a couple tomato cans who don't challenge you any more than your GAs do. What do you really learn from that? How much better do you actually get? This is good because I think John Calipari's squad, it revealed some strengths for sure. But like any other team in the country at the beginning of the season, they also have some lingering questions. The good news, I think, is that one guy, his name's Jonas Aidoo, answers several of them by himself. Now, Aidoo didn't play in either one of the exhibition games. We will see, but kind of the word around the program is that they expect him to be close to a return and hopefully available for Wednesday and then moving forward. And it's going to be a bit of a process with him, right? We got to see, because he's missed quite a bit of time with a lower body injury. I wouldn't expect him to just be able to run right back out there and play 30 minutes against Lipscomb or whoever. Like, they're going to have to ramp him up. He's going to have to get comfortable. He's going to have to get into game shape, but he is a game changer when he's in there. And so when we're talking about him answering some of these key questions for Arkansas, well, what are we really talking about? 3-point shooting, because Arkansas is 13 of 48 in the two exhibition games, 27%. No, not that. I don't think he's going to help him too much there. But in some other areas, I absolutely think he can just kind of solve the problems by himself. What stood out the most to me Friday in Fort Worth was conditioning, or lack thereof. And not only does Jonas Aidoo project as a 20+ minute per game guy, it lengthens your rotation at multiple levels. Arkansas was absolutely gassed against TCU. Frankly, if they were in better shape, they probably win that game by 20+. And that's not an exaggeration. They were pulling away. It had the feel of a blowout. Arkansas's up 54-41 with less than 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. They came out of a timeout, and there was just nothing left in the tank. And it was very, very obvious that TCU was in better shape, and that contributed massively to them coming back and getting that win at the end of the game. Arkansas's had 5-6 guys at practice consistently. Other guys are still working their way back into routine, back into shape. They haven't been able to scrimmage. They haven't been able to get up and down. That's an issue. That's going to come, though. It's just going to take a matter of time before these guys get their game legs underneath them. And the same will be said for Aidoo when he comes back. But like I said, not only does it help you just to have another body, it lengthens your rotation at multiple levels. It's not just about, you have Jonas Aidoo in there, and then maybe it takes some pressure off of Big Z, which it does. But now you have the freedom to play Trevin Brazile more at the 4, because in these other exhibitions, it's been a deal where you haven't seen very much Big Z and TB lineups at all. Like, you've seen it in both games, but very limited amounts of minutes. Reason being because if one of them has to come out, they are each other's replacement. And so it's tough to play them together for long stretches. You get Aidoo back in there, and you absolutely have the ability to do that. If you can play Trevin more at the 4, that then gives you the ability to play Aidoo Thiero more at the 3 on the wing, which is a good thing, because I think, you think about the possibilities of a lineup that has Thiero and Trevin and Jonas Aidoo out there. It kind of changes the way you feel about things. So it's kind of a trickle down or a trickle up effect in the rotation in terms of lengthening that thing. And then, yeah, just the body in general. You go from Arkansas was already going to have a fairly light rotation of 9 guys. You take Aidoo out and it's 8. And then, like I've mentioned, Billy Richmond has kind of been that last guy in the rotation, but he's been playing 9, 10 minutes per game. So it's really been like 7.5. There's a big difference in going from 7.5 to 8.5 with these guys. And we mentioned the way that it lengthens things. So I really think just getting him back changes that dynamic quite a bit. And it also helps Arkansas with the lineup combinations they can put out there. Another question that I think he answers immediately, pick and roll defense for Arkansas. Now it's a full team effort. They've got some things they have to work on outside of the bigs. The weak side help downs, rotations were late or they were not there against TCU. It was problematic. Your guards have to be better about blowing up those ball screens, getting underneath, getting over the top, however they want to cover that. Improvement to be had there. But the bigs were getting picked on in pick and roll coverage. And so no matter what they're going to do in terms of covering those ball screens, Aidoo's really, really good at that. He's very mobile for his size. You can even hard hedge with him a little bit if you want to, or if you're in that drop coverage, he's about as good as it gets in terms of reading that, having good awareness in the drop down. And then he's one of the better rim protectors in the country. I mean, he was top 40 nationally in block percentage, and I think he was second in the SEC overall in just total blocks and blocks per game last season. He's going to make that a lot better. There are going to be games where Big Z, as good as he is and as much as impact as he's going to make, he'll get pick and rolled off the floor in the middle ball screen. Jonas Aidoo won't. That would have made a tremendous difference in the game Friday night. And then the other area is rebounding. Arkansas has been pretty adamant. John Calipari was ticked off about it after the Kansas game. Chin Coleman mentioned it leading up to the TCU game. Hey, we got to be better on the glass. We need to be rebounding 40% of our misses. Arkansas hasn't done that. They were -1 against Kansas. They were actually +5 against TCU. But you can tell there's a lot more in the tank there. And then you add just one of the best rebounders in the country to that equation. And all of a sudden it goes from just maybe a neutrality to a real strength, I think, for this team. Looking at Aidoo's numbers last year just on KenPom, he was in the top 10 percentile in the country in both offensive and defensive rebounding percentage. That is a big deal. He can create you more shots. He's going to go a long way towards that offensive rebounding rate of 40%, which is what it's lofty, but that's what they want. And then just securing the defensive rebounds. Trevin has been decent with that. And Z, what I noticed with both of those guys at times, because they're not the most physical guys in the world, is sometimes they have to work so hard to box out that they then can't separate from their matchup and explode up and get the rebound. So they've been really relying on the guards to come in there and rebound them for them if they're boxing out. I don't think you're going to have that problem at all, quite frankly, with Jonas Aidoo. So you get him back, you get him healthy. I think some of these things that are kind of lingering as, I don't know about red flags, but just kind of got your eye raised about it. That problem is going to be fixed once you get Jonas Aidoo back in there. All right, folks, I want to tell you real quick about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Man, I tell you what, they know that being a passionate football fan, it's not just a hobby, right? It's a way of life. I think Razorback fans can really relate to that. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, and those agonizing second overtimes, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. I like that. The energy shot made just for super fans who are just like us. The fans who are first in the parking lot and they're the last to leave. We see you. We know who you are. You're one of us, right? You know what else gives me a little bit of Arkansas fan fuel this week? Think about some of those big moments. Think about some of those Aidoo Thiero dunks in that TCU game when he was just going off a little bit. Think about some of the good memories for Arkansas football. We have to go back to that Tennessee game a little bit there. But that's what I'm talking about. That gives you that energy, that passion, that joy. Sometimes you need a little bit of a kickstart. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help you keep fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with 5 Hour Energy. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the pod at the Palace edition. Moving on from Jonas Aidoo, We think he's going to answer some questions. This isn't necessarily a question that I have so much as something that I want to see, which is Nelly Davis being front and center more in this Arkansas Razorbacks offense. Okay, and I understand he missed a couple weeks with a wrist injury, so hasn't been in there with those main core guys at practice so much. So still working on that continuity, him getting comfortable within the offense and the flow of things. But it's kind of interesting to me that folks were worried coming into the season about, well, how will John L. Davis and DJ Wagner coexist as both ball dominant guards? Well, here I am after 2 exhibition games calling for Nelly Davis to dominate the ball more. I want to see it in his hands more because I really do think that John L. Davis is that guy. He's the most experienced on the roster. He's your most proven, your most successful. He's been in a Final Four. He's been to another NCAA tournament. He averaged almost 20 points per game. He's a multi-league conference player of the year. A lot of cachet, a big resume. This is why he was the #1 transfer in the country. And it's why Arkansas brought him in. He does not have to be your point guard per se, but he is a legitimate playmaker. I think having him on the ball more actually makes Arkansas a better team. And I think it's a good way to help get him to settle into things a little bit quicker. Does moving Boogie Fland off the ball, not always, I'm not saying a permanent change, but for stretches or possessions or segments throughout the course of a game, does moving Boogie Fland off the ball a little bit maybe make him a more potent 3-point shooter? He's not so worried about navigating ball screens, facilitating, getting others involved. Maybe he gets more spot up opportunities that way, because we know that Boogie Fland is a really, really good 3-point shooter. Through 2 exhibitions, he's only 2 of 11. So I think that takes a little bit of pressure off of him, where he's not trying to create off the bounce, pull up so much off the dribble. You're in the corner, you're letting somebody else create, get to the paint, spray it out to you, and you can get some rhythm threes. I think that would be a good thing for Arkansas. And then is having Davis, giving him more freedom to cook, is that a bad thing for the Razorbacks? I don't think so. He had some turnover problems at times with FAU, so you got to reel that in for sure. But watch that Arizona Florida Atlantic game from last year, and you see that this is far from a bad option for the Razorbacks. When John L. Davis gets to the paint, good things happen. He's got a lot of wiggle to his game. He's a crafty finisher, although I think he was worried a little bit too much about being too crafty in these exhibitions, as opposed to maybe going up strong and getting a foul call and getting to the free throw line. Whatever. Really, really good floater game. His mid-range pull-up is absolutely lethal. If you like Jimmy Witt, if you like Ricky Council, if you like Tremont Mark and those mid-range games, John L. Davis has that in his bag as well. He's also a good shooter, pull-up shooter off the dribble from 3. He can navigate the ball screen. Here's the deal. When Nelly gets into the paint, good things tend to happen, and he shares it well. He's got a nice assist rate over the course of his career. I want to see shot attempts and usage rate go up as we move forward with Davis here. He should be averaging double-digit shots, in my opinion, and I would argue that you might want to mix him in as a late clock guy. I get it against TCU, the guys who have been together in practice more, maybe they get the first looks there. DJ Wagner, if I'm John Calipari, I'm thinking, okay, this is a dude that I know, that I'm familiar with, I'm comfortable with. He's done it for me in the SEC. Maybe I got the ball in his hands down the stretch. Boogie Fland, who was so good against Kansas. He's your 5-star McDonald's All-American freshman. What a way to get him comfortable with those situations than having him do it in an exhibition game. No problems with that at all. But I would like to see Nelly get the ball, because I think he's going to emerge as your go-to guy. And when you need to bucket, there's really nobody better than him when it comes to creating and getting that done. So I'm really anxious to see Nelly Davis start to settle in a little bit. And I hope it happens in this Lipscomb game, because I think you're going to need him at some point in some of these early tough tests. You think about Baylor over the weekend or Illinois coming up on Thanksgiving. You're going to need a guy who's just going to have to go get his and say, hey, give me the rock, let me cook. And I think that he's going to be the guy who can really do that for the Razorbacks. All right, everybody, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. We just talked about FanFuel from 5 Hour Energy. Let's move on to FanDuel. You got to get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back to the final segment of Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod at the Palace edition. It gets real for Arkansas on Wednesday. So let's talk about Lipscomb a little bit. And, Wednesday night, Bud Walton Arena, the official debut of John Calipari. There's going to be so much excitement, so many eyes on this thing. However, I would strongly advise Arkansas not to overlook Lipscomb with this Baylor game, huge game, marquee matchup, neutral site on Saturday, kind of looming on the horizon. I don't think they will because it's the regular season opener. Guys are going to be jacked up. The crowd's going to be in there. They're going to be engaged. But if you're thinking about, man, we got that matchup with the top 10 opponent on Saturday, Lipscomb's not who you want to overlook. A game that Arkansas absolutely should win. I think they're favored by 15 on KenPom. That's a pretty big line for the KenPom standards. I think they should win it comfortably, though. But this is one of those mid-majors with a real shot at being in the NCAA tournament in March and being one of those matchups that nobody wants to see when you get there. That probably counts for John Calipari, too, if you think about some of his recent history in the early rounds of the NCAA tournament. But Lipscomb is good. They are picked to win the Atlantic Sun Conference. And, hey, say whatever you want about that. It's a tough league. And anybody who's favored to win their league, mid-major or not, you got to put some respect on their name, man. You got to take them seriously. This is a Lipscomb team that won 20 games last season, despite having a bunch of injuries impact them. So they have two really, really good players, all league players who are coming back that you probably need to be familiar with. If you're just looking for guys and it's like, all right, who do we really need to pay attention to for Lipscomb that could give Arkansas fits? The first one is Jacob Agnesavic. He's a senior forward. He's a dude who did not play against Arkansas last season because he got hurt in the preseason, but he was coming off a year where he averaged like 18 points per game, 6'8" player, really, really good all-league guy. Now he's back and healthy from injury, so certainly one you have to watch. I hope that isn't a Aidoo Thiero matchup. That's what I'm looking for right there, is Thiero to just take this guy out of the game. Welcome back after a year off. You get to see Aidoo Thiero. Good luck with that. Will Pruitt, another guy, senior forward. He was on the team and active last year, led him in scoring at 15 points per game, was an all-A-Sun player. So those are kind of the two guys that you probably really want to keep an eye on with Lipscomb. And here's the thing about them, though. They're going to really, really run their stuff. They're going to be precise. It's going to be meticulous, kind of that Princeton style of offense. So you have to not only guard and win your, man-on-man assignment, but you got to communicate a lot there. So it's going to challenge Arkansas as a team that hasn't been able to scrimmage a lot. They have had guys in and out of practice, so you're still working on that continuity. You have to be connected as a team defensively to have success against one of these groups that's going to screen you to death, a bunch of flares, a bunch of movement. They're going to shoot a ton of threes. So this will be a good early challenge, I think, for Arkansas here. Remember, last season in North Little Rock, that is who Arkansas played. They built up like a 20-point lead, and that thing just capsized on them in the second half of that game. They wind up holding on and winning by, I think it was just 3 points. Yeah, it was 69-66 was the final score in that game. Way too close for comfort. And so you think about that, and it's like, all right, last year built a big lead on these guys. They came flying back on you and almost upset you. When I think about Arkansas, and I think, man, you had a big lead against TCU. You ran out of gas because you're not quite in game shape left, and yet, and they came back and beat you in the end. And so Arkansas, I think they need to get out to a good start, hot start, feed on the home crowd frenzy there. But once you get that lead, can't afford to take your foot off the gas, because this is a group that can sneak back in on you and make things a little bit more interesting than they need to. But I'm really looking forward to it, man. It's so exciting that it's finally here. We've been waiting for so long since John Calipari took the job back in April. We've had the roster building. We've been waiting on the schedule. We've seen these exhibitions and everything. But this is kind of the moment that we've really all been waiting for, where it becomes real and it counts. And I think Arkansas's got a really good team, and it's going to be exciting to watch these guys come together, develop, and see what they're made of over the course of the season. So that'll wrap us up for today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast, a Pod at the Palace edition. Appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. So it's been Curtis Wilkerson, and we will catch you guys very soon. Everybody have a good one.